Okay, it's time for an update on the Yokomo SX3. This is the body I've put on it for the moment. Old-fashioned HPI Trans Am, based on the car from The Bandit, the 80s movie with Burt Reynolds. Had this body sitting around here. I was going to run it as a VTA shell, but that sort of slowed down a fair bit, so ended up using it for this. So it's something a little different. It's not quite finished yet. Planning on, if I stick with the body, I was cutting out the T-top, putting some car seats inside and a driver, have them hang out, make it look a little bit more realistic just for the hell of it. So basically from the side, nothing special, just a Trans Am. Got that held on with magnets. I designed some 3D printed holders for the magnets, so they're double-sided taped to the body. I had the magnets taped to the body beforehand, but it kept coming off. This body's really not a decent drift body because it's so floppy, and it overhangs the car so much that every time you touch a wall or hit something, it bends and flexes in all directions, and that just puts a lot of load sideways onto the magnets, and the body just kept sliding off. So what I ended up doing was making these magnet holders, which capture the magnet inside there. The lip is raised, and that captures this magnet as well, so it makes it a lot harder to hit the body off sideways. And for the front, it's just a dual version of it, same sort of deal, just rests on there and actually captures the magnet so it can't slide off. So that's the body. Next is the car. So this is what I've ended up with. I try to get the electrics as neat as possible. All the wiring is hidden as much as possible. So what I've ended up with electrics wise, I've got the, the Yokomo DP302 gyro, that just sits in there. The servo model is a Sanwa SXR PGS CL2, fairly reasonable little servo for the price. You can program it using SSL or a special little programming card. The ESC is a Hobbywing, an old Hobbywing XE Run 120 amps 3.1 version, black alloy case. I wanted to make the wiring a little bit stealthier, but I didn't have enough of the black silicon wire, so I ended up going the red, which sort of matches the alloy on the car. Another motor that I had was a 13.5 Outlaw Trackstar motor. For drifting, it seems to be quite adequate. Plus the turbo and boost on the Speedy makes it work reasonably well. Using the kit spur and kit pinion, and they seem to do okay for what it is. I'm sure it could be a little better. The motor itself is very, very notchy. I don't know if you can hear this. So that's just how notchy the motor is. But it's one of those things, it's had it in there, or I had it sitting around, and it's red, so it matches the car. With the wiring, I designed and printed a ESC mount for the back here. I was thinking about making a one that could sit on the angle at the back here and screw into the bulkheads. Might still do that, but this one just mounts straight onto the screw holes for the diffuser. I had the original big diffuser on here to start with, but I didn't like it because it made it a bit awkward to carry and pick up the car from the back, and it really didn't do very much, and it didn't really suit the body. So ended up putting the smaller, narrow one that came with the car as well. So I used that. It's easy enough to pick up the car from the back, and the ESC just fits on there straight away anyway. I might still have a go at making the diagonal mount at the back and hang it off the shock tower, or mount it onto the bulkheads at the back. See how I go. But for the moment, the way this mount is designed, it's designed to run the wiring underneath a small piece of the plate. The plate is an L-shaped plate. It actually extends through and behind and underneath the output drive of the diff and comes out the back here. and the power wires, 3 motor wires, and this sensor cable all run underneath this the plastic lip that it's extended from the back of the mount, and it keeps the wiring reasonably neat. I don't like the mess of wiring that you normally see. I just got sick of having the wiring just looping over, and it just looked like a mess. Plus that body is quite low at the back, so it sort of made it bulge up a little bit, and I didn't like that either. This, I think, makes it a little bit neat. The receiver is just there. It's just a sandwire receiver, nothing flash. This is one of the older ones that has the standard long antenna in it. Just a standard little fan here as well, bolted onto the fan mount that came with the kit. I'll try and overlay some better pictures of this mount, and I'll put the Thingiverse link for the ESC plate and the little silly funnel there on the front of the fan. That's also a 3D printed one I designed and made up, just because I could. Nothing flash. I'll put the Thingiverse links up for the body retainer, or the magnet retainer, although it is very specific to the types of magnets and the diameter of the magnets and the thickness, and the mount a little bit. But the links will be there, and if anyone's interested, go get it and print it out yourself. The wiring for the servo, I wasn't sure initially where it was going to go and where I was going to go with the setup, so what I ended up doing was tucking the wire back in under and wrapping it around once so that the actual servo plug finishes up over here. So you can just sort of see it there. A little bit funny to see, but that gives you a nice, or gets rid of all the excess wiring out of the way. With the gyro just being mounted here, the wire that comes from that is double-sided tape. The plug is double-sided tape to the side of the servo, and the servo wire plugs into that. So that's a nice little place to hold that, and it keeps it out of the way, sort of hidden a little bit. The wire that comes out of the gyro for the gain setting, which is connected to the third channel in the receiver, and the radio, so I can control the gain of the gyro on a dial on my Sandwire M12S. And all of that wiring, as well as the antenna from the receiver going through here, is held in place with a little plastic wrap, just to keep it a little bit neater. There's not really a nice way to neaten that up. If the gyro had plug-in or plugs, that would make it a lot neater, because you could build a custom harness to the right length. But as it is, this was the neatest way I figured out to do it. And there is basically the 3 plugs. So you've got the gyro ESC and the gyro gain. Then you've got a little fan plug that connects to the fan up here, so the fan runs off the receiver. So that's where that is. So as far as the setup of the car drifts pretty well now with the current setup. I haven't got a lot of footage of it as it is right now, because the track I normally go to has closed down for a little while they move. They're supposed to be opening up at the end of February, so hopefully we'll get back out there and have another crack at it and get some video footage of the way this is working. I think the only limitation, or the main limitations of the car at the moment, are me. But I've got a couple of setup changes I want to try and make as well. So the current setup of the car, I actually got off a YouTube channel called DOSLOG, a Japanese channel. And it's from one of the competitors in the RCDC, I think it is, in Japan, on one of their qualifying events, and he top qualified that, which is pretty impressive. The guy's name is Mr. Oyazu. I've probably butchered that name, apologies to him. And so the setup I got on here at the moment is or his setup was 10-degree camber on the front, 3-degree on the rear. I've probably got a little bit more on the front now. I've probably got 12, 13 degrees on the front. The oil, he changed his kit setup to 150 on the front, 200 on the rear. The kit from memory is 300 on the front, 200 on the rear. The ESC is mounted on the rear. His is mounted diagonally here. Mine, because of the mount I've made, is mounted flat. Still thinking about designing a mount that goes a bit diagonal so it's closer, so most of the weight comes in over the or moves a little bit of the weight over this diff or over the center drive lines in the rear. He's using titanium shock shafts on the shocks. I'm just using the standard kit ones. He's got the car set up for flat skid, which I believe basically means that underneath these suspension pin holders, there is a 1mm spacer under each one of these. So 1mm under there, 1mm under the front, 1mm under there, and 1mm under here as well. So that's what they do. I believe that's what their flat skid refers to. It keeps the suspension equidistant from the chassis around all sides. So the other thing that was interesting to me, not coming from a drift background, the diff, he ran with no diff oil and no O-rings. So inside the diff, the output cups usually have an O-ring there to stop the oil leaking out, and that adds a little bit of friction, so they remove the O-rings. So the only thing in there is the output shaft straight onto the gear, straight onto the diff gear, which is an interesting way to go. But yeah, it's what they run, and I set my car up that way and it seems to be working quite nicely. It means you don't get as much acceleration, but you do get more control of the car drifting sideways, so you can get some really good angles without a lot of speed. It makes it a little bit harder to catch, and you can make some other changes for that, I think. But that's what it is at the moment. He's running 1.1 toe on the back. I'm not running very much either. Be very similar. It's just basically the kit set up on the hinge pins, so whatever that's worked out to. He was running a 10.5 ton motor. I've only got a 13.5 in this because that's what I had lying around, and it was red, so you know, it won. So that's where we are at the moment. The tyres and rims. The rims are an MST rim, and they have the adjustable offset. Out of the box, these can be adjusted to +3, +5, +7, +9 degrees when you use the zero offset wheel. These are a zero offset wheel. You can use a +2 wheel, and then that will change the offset of the rims to +5, +7, +9, +11. So that gives you an extra bit of offset if you want. The tyres on these, I'm using the MST Golds. I found with the silvers the car felt very loose, and with the golds it felt a little bit more planted. I might make a change to the car so that I'll change the back to 150 oil and the front to 100 even, and just see if I can get a little bit of extra grip that way, and that should then let me go back to silvers, which wear a little bit better. It's what everybody seems to run at the track. We'll see what the surface is like at the new place and make a decision then. I have also changed the rear springs to the Yokomo Super Sideways Grip, I think it is, or Super Side Grip. I'll have to put a link in the description of the video to the ones that I'm using here. Yeah, so that seems to be a reasonable setup at the moment. The car holds its lines reasonably well. I think most of the shortcomings with the car now are mine, driving it, so it's not too bad. The Sanwa servo is fully programmable as well. There's a few settings that have been tweaked in that, and that made a massive difference to the handling of the car, because I ran it first as box stock and that really didn't work very well. Then got some settings and changed that, and they're a lot better now. I'll put those as an overlay up here in the video somewhere. Yeah. The ride height on the car is around 9mm at the front and 9.5 at the rear, I think it is. Yeah. ESC settings, I'll put those up as well. Can't think of anything else. Just yeah. Any questions, just post something up, and or put a comment below, and I'll have a go at answering it if I can. But yeah, the car went together really well. It looks quite neat. It handles quite well. It seems to be quite good. Yeah. So that's where we're going to next. Try and change the oils to make it get a little bit more grip and a little bit more feel for the tyres. Might be able to go back to silvers at that point. We'll see how we go. But yeah, overall, it's a fantastic car. It's not cheap, but there's no cheap drift cars other than some of the introductory MST ones. I had an MST FXX, the original ones, and yeah, that was a little bit interesting. The bearings in that needed a lot of work. These come in quite good. I didn't do anything to them, and they spin very, very freely, so they're very good. But you can get better ones again as an upgrade for these, which are even better. But yeah, so far so good. I've got to prepare another shell for this, something a bit more drifty, or drift-like, so we'll see how that goes. I've changed the front arms upper and lowers purely because the bling, and makes them a bit more funky to adjust. It makes it, yeah, in a way it looks cooler, in another way it makes it a little bit harder to adjust because it's quite easy to lengthen these rods. The problem with that is, as you lengthen these, you then have to adjust these because you end up with a hell of a lot more toe out if you push these out. It's an extreme expansion of toe, whereas when you use the normal turnbuckles you don't really see that happening very quickly. But it's just something you've got to get used to, and you know when you adjust that, you then got to go away and adjust the steering turnbuckle to get rid of all that extra toe out you've got when you've lengthened that. The toe out on the setup of the car at the moment is pretty much zero. Maybe a tiny, yeah, it's pretty much zero, and that seems to be working. When it's at full lock, the outside wheel is slightly less of an angle than the inside wheel, and that seems to work quite well exiting corners. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. Hopefully when the track opens up, which is meant to be at the end of February, I believe, we'll get back out there and get some video of the thing in action, and hopefully by then I'll have the new shell ready to go as well. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, until next time.